Welcome to the Genealogy Gems podcast. It's a show filled with family history, research, strategies and techniques, news and entertainment, and inspiration. And I'm your host, Lisa Louise Cook. Hello and welcome to Genealogy Gems podcast episode number 153. I'm just back from RootsTech 2013. It was recently held in Salt Lake City, Utah. Again, Family Search has outdone themselves. It was an amazing weekend. I think I taught about 4 classes, did 3 demos, did about 6 video interviews, and we had a booth in the exhibit hall. So it was just go, go, go. And one of my favorite parts was meeting so many of you. If you stopped by the booth, thank you. It was wonderful to see you all. I want to welcome all of our new podcast listeners. I'm so glad that you're here joining us. And we have lots and lots of new Genealogy Gems premium members. So I'm sure that you're busy checking out all the video classes and the podcast episodes. But as you can imagine, with all the traveling that I'm doing right now, things are a little bit hectic. And this episode is no exception. I've got a little bit of a hodgepodge for you today. I was looking back. I was going to do a blast from the past episode with episodes number 9 and 10. And yet, in going back over number 9, I realized that episode was pretty much just an announcement that we had officially begun the Genealogy Gems email newsletter. So rather than spending time on that, what we're going to do today is to jump right into Genealogy Gems podcast episode number 10. In this episode, this blast from the past, I've reworked the audio so it's louder and hopefully much more clear, and it's worth listening to because I had an opportunity to speak with Stephen Morse. Now, you probably know his website, Steve Morse's One Step website, full of great research tools for getting the most out of some of the best free genealogy websites. So I will have that for you. I've got all the notes in the show notes for you. And then we're going to round this episode out with an interview that I did at RootsTech with one of my favorite people, Darius Gray. He is a genealogy guru. You probably will recognize his voice from the PBS miniseries called Ancestors that came out, maybe about 10 years ago now. He is just fantastic. And it was amazing because I was teaching my Google Earth for Genealogy workshop. It was a hands-on workshop, and there he was in my audience. I was pretty amazed. He's one of my big-time heroes. I've never had an opportunity to meet him in person, and so to have our paths cross and have him come up after class and say how much he enjoyed it and how he intended to use it to just further his storytelling in a very digital way. Oh, man, I think I died and went to heaven. So I asked him, hey, would you come on over and do an interview with me? And, of course, he was so wonderfully obliging. You'll be able to find the video version of this interview on my Genealogy Gems YouTube channel. You just go to YouTube, which is youtube.com/genealogygems, or you can find a link to it under video at the website genealogygems.com. So the video version is there, but I know lots of you are out and about, maybe don't always have time to sit down and watch a video. So I've got the audio for you here on the show to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to hear some of the wonderful storytelling and tips for storytelling from genealogist Darius Gray. But first up, we're going to head into a blast from the past, episode number 10. Welcome to the Genealogy Gems podcast. I'm your host, Lisa Louise Cook. Well, hello, friend. It's good to be back with you for another episode of the podcast. You know, I got myself into a little bit of technical trouble in the last month. I guess I must have been talking quite a bit, and my audio files were quite large. And so I maxed out my storage space. You may have noticed that last week's episode was a wee bit short, and this one's actually being published 2 days late on May 1st when I get my new allotment of storage. So indeed, my second grade teacher was right. She would write on my report card, Lisa talks too much to her neighbors. And it's still true today. But who can blame me? You guys are just as much fun as my pals in second grade to talk to. And, actually that's when I first became interested in family history. So I guess it all just comes full circle, right? So we've got a lot to cover. Let's get to it. Today's gem is a fulfillment of a promise that I made to you several weeks back. My interview with Steve Morse of the One Step web pages.
Find a harbor, every bird a nest. Don't be sighing, don't be crying, all is for the best. I just want to see you smiling, I'd do anything for you. Every ship will find a harbor, and our bark will find one too. We'll find a harbor, every bird a nest. Don't be sighing, don't be crying, all is for the best. I just want to see you smiling, I'd do anything for you. Every ship will find a harbor, and our bark will find one too.
That was the tenor, Byron G. Harlan, singing Every Ship Will Find a Harbor from 1908. But of course, the real question is, will every family historian find their ancestor on that ship? To find out, on August 21st, 2007, I attended a seminar sponsored by a local genealogical society here in my area. The speaker was Stephen P. Morse, who is very well known in the genealogy community for his ingenious database search tools available to everyone free from his website, stevemorse.org. And you can just go to the show notes to find a link to that site. From 1892 to 1954, over 12 million immigrants entered the U.S. through the portal of Ellis Island, which is a small island in New York Harbor. Prior to 1890, the individual states, rather than the federal government, regulated immigration into the U.S. Well, before Ellis Island opened, Castle Garden in the Battery served as the New York State Immigration Station from 1855 to 1890. And approximately 8 million immigrants, mostly from Northern and Western Europe, passed through its doors. But it soon became apparent that Castle Garden was just ill-equipped and unprepared to handle the growing numbers of immigrants arriving yearly. So, the federal government intervened, and they constructed a new federally operated immigration station on Ellis Island. Over the next 60-plus years, more than 12 million came through this port of entry. It's estimated that 40% of Americans today have an ancestor who arrived in the United States at Ellis Island, and I know I certainly do. Well, ships' passenger records are really exciting to find and to work with. And if you have an ancestor who came through Ellis Island, you're going to want to make it a priority to find their record. Back in 2001, the American Family Immigration History Center had its grand opening on Ellis Island, and it launched a website which featured a database containing information on 22 million passengers and crew members who entered the U.S. through the Port of New York between those years of 1892 to 1924. And you may have been one of the millions who have used the Ellis Island search tool that draws from the ellisisland.org database. However, you may or may not have had much success. Well, Steve Morse described to those of us at the seminar the success and the frustrations that he encountered, and what he decided to do about it.
Okay, April 2001, as I said, we're now taking a walk through history. April 2001, Ellis Island database goes online. Here's what the website looked like. And it looks not that much different today. And we'll take an example. We want to search for a grandfather of my wife's. Prior to the Ellis Island database going online in April 2001, the way some of you old-timers, myself in that category, the way we searched for records was to go down to the National Archives, use the microfilm readers and the Soundex cards and all that good stuff, and find these ship records for our various ancestors. And I did that, and I found all my grandparents, all my ancestors coming across, and all my wife's ancestors, except for one grandfather of my wife's, Jonas Feiner. I was very anxiously awaited the Ellis Island database going online, thinking maybe I'll have a better chance now of finding Jonas's record. So we'll follow this example. What do I know? Jonas Feiner, I know he was born in 1870. This is the family information that we have. We know he arrived between 1898 and 1901 because we know that he came from Iași, Romania, and his ethnicity is obviously Romanian. And I'll go on the Ellis Island website now. It comes online in April 2001, and I want to do the search for Jonas Feiner. Well, it turns out in April 2001, you couldn't get on that Ellis Island website. The traffic was horrendous. It was much more traffic than they ever expected, and they didn't have enough server power even for less traffic. They were well understocked as far as computers go, and you couldn't get on during the day. The only time you could get anywhere near that website was 3 in the morning. So I set my alarm for 3 in the morning. And I went down and I did the search for Jonas Feiner. And I finally got in, and I hit the search button, and you wait. And you wait. Even at 3 in the morning, you wait 10 or 15 minutes. It's better now, of course. But in those early days, you wait your 10 minutes, even at 3 in the morning, and eventually I got back the results. 0, 0, 0. Well, one thing I'd like to do is, if I could shorten the name, maybe just the initials. If there's no Jonas Feiner's name, this JFs. See, I need to strategize. I can search on just the initials, so I'll get more hits. But if I search on JF, I'll get a lot of hits, many hits, too many hits, and the search will probably time out. So that's no good. I can specify the age, the year, the ethnicity. That won't yield any more hits. That'll narrow things down. If I'm getting nothing to start with, that's not going to help me. And I can enter one parameter at a time. I enter one parameter, do a search. One more parameter, do a search. That's how they used to work. So it won't help me to enter these other parameters, but by doing so, I'll eventually get to the point where I can then enter the JF and not time out, because I've got all the other things entered as well. So do the second. I need to do the second in order to do the first.
Steve experienced much of the same frustration that we often do. However, he just happens to be a world-renowned engineer. He holds electrical engineering degrees from 3 universities, which he put to good use when he designed the Intel 8086, the predecessor to today's Pentium processor. And being an amateur genealogist, he put those skills to good use by developing the one-step Ellis Island website to make those records easier to find. Since that time, the one-step site has really been expanded to include new search capabilities and an array of color-coded search forms. Today, Steve recommends use of his Gold form, which searches all New York passengers using enhanced search options. It uses the database at ellisisland.org, but has its own search form and search engine, which provides the enhanced features. The bottom line is that on the Ellis Island website, you'll most likely have to keep going back and revising and adding to your search to get what you need. But using his Gold form website, all the search criteria are there on one page for you to choose from and to use. You'll be using your search time much more effectively, and you know me, I want to get the most I can out of my research time. So let's find out more about how Steve's one-step pages continued to evolve, eventually to the Gold form, which I've already mentioned. In 2006, Ancestry.com ups the ante by bringing all New York arrivals online.
Okay, that was November 2006 with Ancestry coming online. But that month was very exciting. Ancestry comes online with the all New York arrivals, and from the one-step site, Gary Sandler's working busy. We had suddenly gotten from Ellis Island, and they didn't realize they sort of gave it to us by accident, but we got it with their blessings, the full 25 million passenger database with every field for every passenger. The reason we had the blue and the gray form is because we had all 1 million passengers with all details, or 25 million passengers with some details. So then we had all details and all passengers. Well, quickly scrambled to get a search form and a search engine for that. And Gary Sandler pulled off his magic again, getting the search engine for the gold search form. So now we have blue plus gray equals gold. The gray form searches all 25 million passengers, only on 4 fields. The blue form searches on any of the fields, but only the 1 million passengers who are Jewish. The gold form searches all 25 million passengers on every field. The blue and the gray form are now obsolete. They're still there for anybody who wants to use them, but even when you go to it, you keep getting pop-ups saying, please don't go any further, please go to the gold form. If you really want to, I'll let you continue.
Please go to the gold form. That was the key message, and it's one that we do very well to heed. The One-Step website started out as an aid for finding these ship passengers in the Ellis Island database. And shortly afterwards, it was expanded to help with searching in the 1930 census. Over the years, it has continued to evolve and today includes over 100 web-based tools divided into 12 separate categories. They range from genealogical searches to astronomical calculations. And listen to this, he even has a last-minute bidding form that you can use for eBay. If you listened to episode 3 of the Genealogy Gems podcast about eBay, then you know that I was excited to hear that. I had a chance to talk to Steve one-on-one. And here's an excerpt from that interview. I'm talking with Steve Morse, and I was thrilled to find out that you also are an eBayer. One of the subjects I recently did on my podcast was about searching eBay for awesome items that may have belonged to your family or help with your research. So you've got this amazing tool. I can't wait to put a link on it in my website. Tell me what kind of artifacts or things have you found that have helped you with your research or pertain to your family?
I've not used it at all for my genealogy.
You haven't? Oh, you have to go to one of my previous episodes. I've found all kinds of little things that had my family's name on it, from somebody who owned a mercantile store, that kind of thing. So you haven't looked for resources or... Not
for genealogy, no.
Family Bibles, that kind of thing. Okay, no problem.
Sorry.
What I'm finding and talking to people is that they're just so overwhelmed, they're afraid to start. You know, it's taking that first step. What would you recommend if they were going to go to stevemorse.org? Where would you have them start?
The first steps, in my opinion, are immigration the ship records and the census records.
Right.
If the family's been around for a long time, then you take census records all the way back. If they've come over in more recent times, by recent I mean the peak immigration years, like the beginning of the 1900s, start by looking for the ship records. The ship record may help you find more census records. The census records may help you find the ship records. That would be a good start for the family. If you're tracing them through their stay in this country, a lot of the birthday databases are useful. Helps them find where they are, who other members of the family are. Finding other members of the family will help you get more information about the family going back.
You know, you really got me thinking about a World War II veteran coming back and that he has a ship record. When did you start to realize that there was power beyond the initial immigration?
Well, when the Ancestry.com database came on and they went to 1957, I said, my God, that's a lot of years.
Right.
It's almost within my lifetime, and I'm starting to think, what would I find within my lifetime on the ship records? And I had cousins who were in the war, and searched for their records, and they came up.
Awesome. So my last question is the really basic one, which is, I read that in your bio that you've been doing this about 12 years. Genealogy? It sounds like you have a lot of different...
That all depends on how you want to... what point you want to start counting. I've been doing this, you could say, all my life, because when I was a teenager, my mother helped me do a family tree at that time. I didn't do anything with it. I kept it in a shoebox for some 40 years until I got back to it. And there were various things got me back to it. When the 1920 census went online, got some interest there. Somebody told me about it, and I went down and found a census record. That was my first public document that I found, and that got me excited. So that was a renewed interest. My wife's family, when they started tracing their family tree, that got me an interest in finding my old family trees and bringing those up to date. So there's no one period of time when I started. It's been starting and stopping, if you will.
It's been a progression.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's great. Thank you. Nice to meet you.
Okay.
That's it for this week's edition of the Genealogy Gems podcast. As always, thank you so much for joining me. And thanks for the great response to the newsletter. It has been awesome, and I appreciate the extra little notes that you guys have sent. When Kristen in Utah signed up, she told me that she listened to all 9 episodes that day at work. Wow, that's a lot of me to take in one sitting. Yikes. But I'm thrilled that you're all enjoying the show. If you haven't signed up for the free Genealogy Gems newsletter yet, I encourage you to do so because it's an important companion piece to this podcast. Just go to the website at genealogygemspodcast.com and click on the link to sign up. And as always, you can email me at genealogygemspodcast@gmail.com with comments and questions. Hey, by the way, if you're enjoying the show and you subscribe to the podcast in iTunes, would you do me a favor? Go to my listing and leave a positive review. I'll have a direct link in the show notes in case you need it. I'd really appreciate it because I think it will help increase the show's visibility in iTunes. So thanks a bunch. Well, that's it for now, friend. I'll talk to you soon. Well, as I promised at the top of this episode, coming up next is my interview with genealogist, guru, and star of the PBS miniseries Ancestors, Darius Gray. I am so excited because I get to share with you, I consider him a new friend. Somebody I have absolutely admired for so many years. This is one of my personal heroes that I got all excited about when I saw him in the halls here at RootsTech 2013. That's Mr. Darius Gray. Hi, Darius.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing good.
Are you having a good time here?
I am having a fabulous time. It's bigger and better than ever. It always is.
More information than I can absorb.
I know. You just feel like your head just spins around.
Just kind of like your class. You had so much information in that. I loved it.
And we're talking about Google Earth for genealogy.
We are indeed.
Yeah. I saw you there, and I thought I recognized you, but when I heard your voice and you asked me a question, I knew who I was talking to. And you might know Darius, you probably do, from the Ancestors miniseries on PBS. That's where I first became aware of you, and of course you've done so many things before and after that. Tell us, this whole conference is about storytelling.
Yes.
The story you told on the Ancestors miniseries about your discovery in the census microfilm truly inspired me to want to do what I'm doing now, in that I've always been a lover of a good story, and I felt like I wanted to talk to people too, because you talked to me and didn't even know you were doing it, and touched my heart, and if I could somehow talk to somebody and make a difference for them, then we just spread it around. And
we share.
It seems like a natural thing for you, this storytelling.
Well, it is. As you were saying that, I flashed back to my childhood, and I could see my mom cleaning house, and we had a break front, and in the left-hand side were 3 drawers, and in the lower drawer were the family pictures, and they were in a couple of boxes, a shoe box and something else, and I was the kid who would always say, "Mom, may I, look at the pictures?" In my generation, you had to say, "May I?"
Yes, sir.
But then I'd ask her as I was looking at the pictures, "Mom, tell me the story about this again." And so I heard stories growing up and had them repeated and refreshed in my mind. It made the people come alive. It made their lives significant to me as a little kid. And so, stories are the heart of it. It's not just names, dates, and places, it's the people.
It's the people. And it's also the fact that mom stops what she's doing and takes the time to tell the story. There's a bonding that goes on there.
It's important that she knew the stories. You can't tell or teach that which you don't know. And she cared enough.
Yes.
She had learned herself those stories and shared them then with us.
What were do you remember one of the stories or a photograph in that collection that you realized it touched you and kind of stayed with you, that you have somehow brought this all through your life?
My grandmother was married a couple of times, and at first I thought, well, maybe she married once and then just sort of took up with the gentleman the other times. No, she married them, so I'm going to have to apologize at some point.
Okay.
But Grandma was one who did things the right way and insisted that her children do the same. My mother and her siblings were taught to work hard.
Right.
And one of the stories, my grandmother always followed the railroad. She lived at a railroad hub, a community, because she and her children would clean the coveralls of the workmen. And so Mom learned to use the scrub board and those big galvanized tins and to make lye soap, and how to get the grease out by heating it long enough and hot enough that the grease would rise out, the oil from those coveralls. And I've been to some of those locations where the family was, and I've seen the house where they lived, and I can reflect on the story and see my mother working as that child who then taught us, her children, the value of work.
The value of work. And passing that on. And sometimes I wonder, we always feel disconnected. Sometimes we think the next generation's not getting it. What do you recommend? I mean, there's people watching and listening who are saying, oh, he tells a really good story, but how do I start talking to my kids? I'm not sure they're going to want to talk to me.
I think we all have good stories in us, and maybe it's just finding the right time and the right setting to let them come out. When I was talking to my mother in later years, I used to take an old clunky video or audio tape cassette and put it down. And, if you hold a microphone in front of someone, anyone's going to freeze up. But nowadays with the digital, recorder, get one, turn it on, sit it down. But for your kids, it's the same sort of thing, making the time and the place appropriate. If it's while you're baking cookies, if it's while they're cleaning their rooms, whatever, and just ask them what happened in your day today and be able to listen rather than to try and go on to the next thing you have to do. Multitasking kills a lot of communication because we're always in so much of a hurry.
It's so true.
And so simple things, even making the bed in a room, you can tell a story and talk to one another if you're not always hurrying to get on to the next task.
The hurrying gets in the way, definitely.
It does.
Shortens the task. Well, I know it was so fun to meet you the first time yesterday in class, and you still had such amazing enthusiasm for this. I'm assuming the Google Earth for genealogy was some new stuff to you, or
yes.
Had you? So you're still learning. You're still
I hope
out
to
there
learn
reaching.
until the last breath.
So we don't get to know it all at the
No,
end.
I don't think any of us do. And the challenge is there is so much to learn, so much to see. But you need to pick and choose what it is that holds your interest. Your class held a particular interest to me. And so I'm going to take that information that you gave me, and I'm going to go home and practice and work with that, and just build upon it to the best of my ability. Mm-hmm. So I thank you.
You're welcome. I appreciate it.
Thank you for caring enough to present and to prepare so that you could share with others.
I love doing it, and I think everybody here, there is some kind of energy going on. It's like everybody's sharing, down from the newbie who learns something new in a class and sits down and tells the next person in the next class, to the experts they have here. Boy, this kind of sharing is just what it's all about.
Kid in a candy store.
Kid in a candy store. And this has been such a treat for me. And I'm so thrilled to be able to share a little bit of Darius Gray with you. Thanks for joining us. Thanks, Darius.
Appreciate it.
Profile America, Wednesday, April 10th. The need to pay a $15 debt sparked one of the most useful of inventions, patented on this date in 1849. Walter Hunt, a mechanic in New York, owed the debt. While he thought about how to raise the money, he fiddled with a small piece of wire. Finally, he bent the wire with a twist in the middle, creating a spring, and formed a clasp at the other end to guard the point of the wire. He had invented the safety pin. Hunt called his device a dress pin and sold his rights to it for $400, little realizing that its utility would be enduring and lucrative. Manufacturing pins, needles, buttons, and other fasteners is a near $1 billion-a-year business in the U.S., employing about 5,500 people. You can find more facts about America from the U.S. Census Bureau online at census.gov.
Thanks so much for joining me for this Genealogy Gems podcast episode number 153. And again, welcome to all of you who are new to the show after RootsTech 2013. If you want information about the things that we talked about on today's show, you'll find them at the show notes. So just go to genealogygems.com, hover your mouse over podcasts in the menu, and select podcast episodes. Then navigate your way to episode number 153. Just follow the links, and there you'll find the full notes for everything that we talk about in today's show, including information on using Google Earth for genealogy. That was the class that Darius and I were chatting about, and certainly it was a huge hit. Not only did the first one sell out, but they added a second class, and that one sold out. So I decided to do a little demo in the demo theater at RootsTech in the expo hall, just for those who couldn't get into class. But anyone can learn how to use Google Earth for genealogy with me working right alongside you through video. And that's with my video series, Google Earth for Genealogy. There's Volume 1 and Volume 2. They're sold as a 2-disc bundle at genealogygems.com at our store. All right, well, it's time for me to hit the road again. I'm heading to Lakeland, Florida. I'm going to be speaking at the Imperial Polk County Genealogical Society Seminar. That's April 13th, 2013. Hope to see many of you there. That's my first speaking engagement down in Florida, and I'm just looking forward to meeting all of you. And for the rest of you, we'll meet here again next time at the Genealogy Gems podcast. Thanks so much for listening, friend. I'll talk to you soon.